Yo guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing fantastic as usual. And today we're going to be continuing off where we left off in the previous episode. We have been working on this nice, amazing new column system where we let the user create their own columns. The user is in full control. They don't need these hard-coded statuses anymore. We just simply let the user create their own columns, and they are also drag and droppable. So this is pretty awesome, I must say. We just drag and drop these, and then we can also drag the cards themselves. The task cards can be moved to another list or another column, whatever you like to call it. And just like I said, I feel like we should just finish this off and make it a bit more robust. We should make it mobile responsive as well. Perhaps add the ability to rename these columns and stuff like that. So just finishing off where we left off really. And of course also look a bit at cleaning up the code so that the code is not left as an unholy mess that we just ripped out old stuff and pushed something shiny bright new in, and we didn't really clean up the code, so to speak. So we should look a bit at that. But the first step I feel like is making this responsive, because currently it's definitely not responsive. Well, we're on our way to making it responsive, I must say. It's pretty close to being responsive, but it's not fully responsive. And it's also this stuff with completing the task. We don't really have that status anymore, but it really depends on if it matters. Perhaps you can just have like a completed flag like we had in the initial version. But for the mobile layout here, it would be nice if we could stretch this out to fill the full width here. And we're kind of controlling this a bit hard-coded currently, aren't we? Let's see where we are. We are in to-do column, right? So we're controlling this with task column width, which we are defining in the global CSS task column width. So this is min width and max width. And we kind of want to handle this for the mobile so that on the mobile it will just fill the whole screen width. So for this, I think I'm going to be using some media queries. We can definitely do with this with Tailwind CSS. We can create our own custom rules and we can do all of that. But let's not forget where it all came from. It's all CSS really. So just freshen up the memory. You definitely don't need to do this. You can also do this with just Tailwind CSS. But I'm just going to freshen up my memory a bit with the media queries on how to do that. So I believe it's something like this media screen. We're getting help from VS Code as well, so I don't even need to remember it. So media screen, and then I can just do and min width, I think. So this is, max width it will be. So this will be for the mobile. So this is the constraint that we set for up until max width 768 pixels. We're going to apply these rules. And for that, we're going to be applying task column width, and this will be min width 100 view width. So this will be viewport width, and it kind of worked out. But you can see that it also failed a bit here. I believe that is because of the padding, isn't it? Perhaps you can just do min width 100%. Is that possible? Yes, it is. And there the problem is solved really. And it also worked out flawlessly for that create button, since it also uses this class. So that's really nice. And I believe you can move these on the mobile as well. I'm not really sure how nice that experience is though. So just like we said before, we kind of wanted to move these tasks. When we complete them, we're kind of gonna be moving them automatically, and we can't really do that anymore since this is now user provided. The user decides their own column, so we can't like randomly magically move it to some random column because we don't really have that hard-coded strict. It's way more dynamic now. So I feel like it would just be nice to have this checkbox if the user wants to complete a task, and we just cross it off or something. We don't need to do anything fancy with that, I feel like. And you can still move them, you can still drag and drop on the mobile, even though it's a bit cumbersome, especially if you have like multiple columns, and we have to like scroll up. We don't really fit that much on a mobile screen, of course. So, but I feel like it would be nice to have some flag here that indicates that this has been completed. And of course, we won't have this at all on the desktop. We won't show that because it doesn't make really sense to do that. But of course, you can do that if you feel like doing that. But in my opinion, it doesn't look that good to have like a checkbox here. If you're gonna have these kinds of lists where you move them around, then you probably have something like completed and then you just move them over, and that's way more fancy. You also get that really nice feeling, this visual approach that you're moving it and getting rid of it and stuff like that. So it's not really just checking it off. That's more a mobile thing. So on the mobile, we can just check it off and it will just stay in that list. I feel like it makes more sense to do it that way. So feel free to comment if you have another clever idea on how to design that. But for me, I'm just gonna keep it like this. So we're just gonna check it off and we have removed all of that. So this will just be completed and that will be a boolean indicating if it has been completed, checked off or not. And then to-do column is starts complaining. Yeah, so this is the model here. This will be completed and the default value will be false, of course. And then in to-do item actions is where we actually have that checkbox, I believe. So yeah, we have this type checkbox here and we bind this to completed and then we change the status or something. We're doing some really complicated stuff here, but we're not going to be dealing with that anymore. We're just going to be setting data.completed, or how are we binding this? Okay, so it's just completed, and I think we can actually bind this to the actual property of the object. So we can do something like export let completed, and then we can just use that and bind that with two-way data binding. So on completed change, we can still keep this. We want this for when we want to save to local storage. When we change the checkbox, when we check that checkbox, we want to save that state to local storage. And then we can simply just do bind checked completed, and this should bind then to that property. So hopefully that will work. And for the to-do item, then we can bind here. So we bind completed, and that will be data.completed. And hopefully that should work now. So if I check this random task now and reload a page, it does not work at all. That's exactly what I intended. If I just log this out here or display it on the card, does it work? Yes, it does. So it's something in the saving process. On completed change, does that get called? I believe so. But we can always see if it is the case or not. So true, false, that is definitely getting called. And then this is passed on to the to-do column, I would believe. So to-do item, on completed change, dispatch completed change, task item completed. And this is for the actual app then. So this is where we're rendering that to-do board. Okay, it's actually in to-do board.svelte. So how are we handling this here then? We have a to-do column on title change, on completed change. So we haven't actually implemented this. So that's quite shocking. We never actually implemented this on completed change when we switched to the column layout or something. I haven't really been on the phone responsive that much. I haven't actually tested this, but it seems we never bound to that, right? So if I just dispatch edit, is that what we have? We have board delete. If I go to app.svelte, where are we saving to local storage? So it's on completed change that we're expecting it to be called. Are we ever calling that here in to-do board? All right, we had actually on task completed change, so we were checking for that, I believe. Yeah, I just copied that and removed it, so no worries. We actually had on completed change. I was a bit shocked there to see that I have not implemented that, but we have on task completed change. Yeah, and then we also handle this move task by status, so that's why I commented it out. So, but we can just handle that immediately here now where we have access to it, I believe. So we can simply dispatch update here. I think that should be fine. Let's try that out. So if I now check this again and reload, and there we go. Now it's being persisted. Isn't that amazing? So let's see also if that media query actually worked. And yes, it seems like it worked. So nice. We have that. Now we can toggle that sidebar, and that seems to be working. Amazing. And I can check these tasks just to verify. Yes, it seems like it's working. Amazing. So now it would also be quite nice to be able to rename this column just by using content editable, just like usual, our beloved content editable. So we're handling this here in the H2, I believe, and we're actually all we have this as content editable. Or do we know? Okay, that's actually this board here. It's not the actual column. Yeah, that's right. Here is where we want to bind that. So we simply want to do content editable true, and then we bind the text content. So the inner text there will be data dot, or column that name rather. And now that should be content editable. And yes, it seems like it is. But this will not be persisted since we are not actually handling that in any way. So we can just use our beloved blur event as well. So simply bind here to on blur. So whenever the user focuses out of that content editable, then we just save it. You can also do it on every keystroke, of course, but now since we're doing this on the client, we can kind of do that a bit more cheaply. We don't have like a server where we need to send requests on the interwebs over like, you know, worrying about the bandwidth and stuff like that. So now we can just save that to file rather with local storage. So let's just do that on blur. Whenever we focus out, we can just do on column name focus out, or on column name blur, since that's what they like to call that. And then we can just dispatch update here as well. So that should be very straightforward, on column name blur, and then we bind to that here, and hopefully that should work now. So if I rename this to homework, and then I click somewhere else and I reload, boom, it has been saved. Isn't that amazing? One thing though now is that we can't really move this around here. I'm not really sure what the bounding box here is. I think it's actually like using all that width. Yeah, so we kind of need to handle that. We don't want that. We only want it to, you know, use as much width as it is actually taking up space with the title there. So I believe we can just use justify center for this, and then it will just justify everything to center and not use that space. So let's see if that works. If I just use justify center, and let's see, justify center, that was not enough. Okay, if I try items center as well, you know, try everything in the book. Okay, that broke everything, but yeah, you know, it actually achieved the effect that I wanted it to. It also makes sense since we're in a vertical layout now, so we kind of just need to handle for this task card to use the full width here, and that should hopefully be pretty easy. And we just use that here, or let's see here. To this element we are applying flex 1, and that should be enough really, but if I just set this width to 100%, will that work? Yes, it will. So I guess I can just apply it to this flex call here as well. And what is that for? Okay, so it's just a flex call of the actual, you know, items inside of it. So the actual other vertical list that is inside of it. And then we just do the same here for the input type text, and that will also work out. I think there's other ways to do this than just using items center, but that's the first solution that came to mind. So feel free to comment if you have a better suggestion on how to do that. But now it seems to work. Now I can actually start dragging it here in the side, and where there is no realistic title, where there realistically is no title. So now the bounding box is on the actual title, and then we can just rename it however we like. And boom, that has been saved. And for this we also kind of want to center this text. So on the mobile it would be nice here to have this text centered. Maybe we can just apply text align center. I kind of like to apply these CSS rules in the browser immediately here with just this element inline, so that we can see if it will work. We can actually try it out before we write the code into VS Code. So that's quite a nice trick that I like to utilize when developing stuff like this. So I think we also want to do, I guess, justify center then, justify content center. Yeah, so that works rather than text align. We don't want that. And that is for the actual to-do board. So that's in here. So I believe we can just apply this then. So if I just do justify center, it should work on the mobile, and then it will kind of break here on the desktop. So we can just do justify start, I believe, and that should then work on the desktop. And yes, it did. Isn't that amazing? So now we have it centered here on the mobile, and it looks way better in my opinion. So yeah, I think that is actually kind of what I was going for when it comes to the mobile layout. I feel like that looks quite nice actually. Perhaps we could add a bit more gap between these columns. That would be kind of nice. So if I can do gap 4 instead, we kind of want to give them a bit more breathing room, and that looks pretty nice to me. Then we can also create a new column down here, and that works out quite nicely as well. So I can do pet the pets, and that works out. We can create a new column here, I can create these, I can complete these, and I can also rename it, and I can reload and go back to desktop, and everything seems to be fine, right? And we can also, oh, okay, that was quite an interesting effect now. So now we're actually scrolling the side here rather than, is that what we want is the question, you know? It's kind of nice to have actually access to all of the boards, so maybe that's what we want. And the reason is I believe because we have applied that overflow scroll to this. Yeah, we have overflow x scroll to this. If we didn't do that, then it would just be the whole page, and you know, it kind of breaks here because it's not actually filling up the content fully. But I feel like this is quite a nice effect actually. Now we can actually have it visible, we can have the sidebar visible whenever we are scrolling. Not really sure if this is the best design, but it's quite nice to have it like this actually. I can just go to another board if I feel like. You know, I'm all up in my million to-do columns, and then I want to switch a board. I don't need to scroll back over here to see the sidebar. That's quite nice functionality, I feel like. It will be nice with some spacing here though. It's getting a bit tight on this side here. Perhaps we can solve this somehow. It would probably just be on this, and it's not really obeying that since we are scrolling so much. Maybe if I add some padding to this column instead, will that work? No, it will not. It will actually make it smaller, and that's not what we want. Perhaps we could add some margin to it. I'm really not sure if that's gonna work, but we can always try. Yep, that did not seem to be working actually. Okay, this is quite a weird scenario now when we have scrolling. I'm not really sure what we want to be doing. Perhaps we can apply it to the actual button inside of it rather than applying it to, you know, the task column. We can try that out for sure. So if I just do button here, if I do like margin right on this and do like margin right 4, will that work out? Yeah, it actually seemed like that worked. That is really strange. Kind of pushing and pulling on the page in different directions and stuff like that. I'm not really sure why the padding didn't work there when we had the scroll, so feel free to comment if you know about that. I should probably look that up because it feels really strange that we have a padding and it does not obey it just because we have a scroll on it or something. Maybe there's something else playing in on that to give it that effect, but at least we solved it now with the margin right. How will this look on the mobile though? Okay, no worries there. There it works fine because we don't have the scroll effect, so I'm not really sure what that was about, but now it at least seems to work like I want it to work, so mission accomplished. Also noticed here that there's a little bit less gap there, so perhaps we can add that. That is from this here, so gap 4 here instead, right? Yep, exactly. So now that seems to be nice to my eyes. Yeah, that's great. And we can also drag and drop these as we like. And actually, is this order being saved? Yes, it seems like it actually is. Or is it actually not? No, we're not actually saving the order when we drag and drop them. So that is something we need to implement as well. So that will be in the actual to-do board, I believe. So we have handle, need, consider. And then we simply just want to save that to local storage. So I guess we can just dispatch update. Just dispatch update whenever you're feeling uncertain, because it will probably solve all of our problems. So if I move this over here now and reload, and it all solved. You know, we're just moving things in the array and then we just save the whole array to local storage. We don't really need to manage the update on a micro level, like we need to move this here, we need to move that. No, we just update the state and then we just save all the state, and that just works flawlessly. So that's quite nice, but we're gonna have to look over this when we start introducing a server, because we probably don't want to send an essay of JSON every time we do something on the page in the future. So we're gonna have to look at that then. But that's quite nice. I guess we can look a bit at refactoring the code now as well and cleaning it up a bit. We have this uncompleted change. We're not using that anymore since we just handle it by using it here, uncompleted change, dispatch update. We can also make these anonymous functions into proper functions, but I'm just being a bit lazy right now. So we have this stuff here. We have a move task by status. Even though it was a really cool feature, it kind of needs to go now since we are not using statuses anymore. We're just using this completed. I guess we can have it line through as well. We didn't really apply that. So we have to do item, and that is this title here. So we can just do this again. We can do class line through, this conditional classes. So line through whenever data.completed is true, and there we go, that is solved now, and that works pretty nicely. But just like I said, we can just remove this commented out code. I feel like we are not going to be using statuses anymore, and that looks pretty fine to me. We could definitely make things into more components, you know, isolating stuff a bit more. I feel like we should create more and more components in the future. So probably just a dedicated video on that, or just a general refactoring video in the future where we just clean it up even further, because I feel like we're doing a lot of stuff in these. We're getting quite fat components currently, so that's something we're gonna have to look at. And we can remove this class line true status. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty fine. To do item, to board, to do column, and we have this status stuff once more, and we're not gonna be handling that, so we just remove it. We have statuses as well. This status type thing, we're not gonna be using that anymore, so we just remove it, and now we get the help of seeing all of the errors, so we know where to remove it from. That's quite helpful. So we can just remove that import, and we can remove this fat const here, and boom. That seems to be all for this file. And then we have the to-do board as well. We are handling some statuses here, perhaps. I just removed that import and everything solved itself. Amazing. Search for status. Is there statuses anywhere? It's also here in the app.svelte, which we probably want to handle. So on task delete, actually, we haven't solved this properly. So we need to handle this, and I think we are doing this in another way here where we find the index. Yeah, so we can just do this here and use the same code for that. So column index, and then we can just use the same code here as well for that. So instead of e.data here, we just want to use task.id, and we can remove that. We can probably just use task here, but I'm feeling a bit lazy, so I'm just gonna get rid of it for now. But other than that, it looks pretty fine. There's definitely a bit more refactoring to be done in this file, but probably gonna save that for a dedicated video in the future. But let's try removing a task now. So if I just add a bit here, and if I remove sad here, I delete that task and I reload, and that seems to be persisted as well. So that's quite nice. Let's see, is there anything else we need to have a look at? Search for status once more. Status planned, we don't want that. So this is to do item create, and we're actually not using that anymore. We just have this for the actual to do column. So we have a to do item create on each to do column. So I don't think we're gonna be using that to do item create anymore. Perhaps we could have like a create a quick task or something, but it doesn't really make any sense now when you have these columns. You know, if you want to put it in home, you write it here. If you want to put it in completed, you put it here. So I feel like we just could get rid of it. I don't think there's that much to look at here. Perhaps we can look a bit at accessibility here. So we need to have that minded set now. We had it a bit more with the buttons, definitely, but the inputs, we can give a bit more descriptive labels perhaps. So we have this to-do column here. We have this input type text. So it's pretty much the same. Write a task name and press enter to create a new task. Yeah, exactly what it does. Add a task. Nice. So now I can just remove that to-do item create. That should be fine. Move to trash, app.svelte. Do I need to remove any import? Doesn't seem like that. Or yes, it does actually. I can't see an error though, but it's just like a warning for some reason. Okay, there we go. Now I deleted that. We don't have that anymore. We can create it from here, and I can... Okay, that's a bit strange. We're not saving when we're adding tasks. All right, okay. We have a bit more to work on, I guess. So this is from here, I believe. So we have to do board. Okay, so this is where we're actually pushing it, and we're not updating. We're not saving to local storage for some reason. That's quite a bit bad if we can't create tasks, you know. We had other updates in the meanwhile. That's why it persisted previously, because we were updating names and stuff like that. So we just saved the state then. So it's a bit dangerous also when we have like this super dynamic, just push everything into local storage, because chances are we're gonna miss sometimes when we are, you know, doing these kind of micro changes, that we change just one thing and then all of a sudden it's not being persisted anymore. So definitely good to look out for that. But now it's being saved, right? I just create one task and boom, it's being saved. Nice. I can rename that task as well. I can rename this board as well, and spell checking, of course, we want to get rid of that. So to do column here, we want to do spell check here to false. Boom. No more grammar police over here. Yeah, but that seems to be working. Will it work now if I move status as well? Yes, it will. Isn't that amazing? So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like it or dislike it depending on what you thought of it. Also feel free to comment if you have any thoughts or ideas, or you just want to let me know how your project is going. I would love to know. Also consider subscribing if you want to be part of this community that I'm trying to build. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.